I started it because it's 9 a.m.
That sounds like a signal that I shouldn't ignore. So let's, so I am,
And I apologize if this is,
No, not in any way, you're fine. It's a tiny candle. He'll move it over.
now, I don't know if anyone can ever see our flaming chalice, but it is bringing light to the room as our speaker.
Honey, put that away from Kevin, move that away from the computer, please. Move the candle away from the computer. Yeah.
Well, very good.
Yep.
So this morning, I'm going to open with a reading from E.O. Wilson's little book, The Creation. And if you're not familiar with it, the format is as a letter to an imaginary Southern Baptist pastor. E.O. Wilson opens by pointing out that he grew up a Southern Baptist, and although he's slid over into secular humanism, he believes they have some common ground in seeking to preserve the creation, and so that's the focus of the entire book. And I'll read this this passage. Oh, I'll just point out too that it was E.O. Wilson, a professor of entomology at Harvard and a major voice in the 80s and 90s for preserving biodiversity. And his one of his most famous books actually is The Ants, since he specialized in ants as an entomologist. We happened to be at a book signing by E.O. Wilson at Johns Hopkins once upon a time. As he finished, Rachel raced to the front of the room ahead of everybody. He signed our book, our copy of his book, and drew a wonderful little ant on the by the foreword, and then someone came over and pointed out to him that people were lining up, and time was limited, and he needed to move. So we were the only ones who got the ant. He is also the one who invented the acronym for the factors that are degrading our environment and our sustainability. HIPPO, which I've put on the marking board there. The H is for habitat loss due to human activity. The I is for invasive species. The first P is for pollution. And there are five, he lists 5 different kinds of pollution, but the first is air pollution, which includes the burning of fossil fuels and the warming of the climate as a result. The second P is for population. The way in which we're crowding out other species, as it were, which feeds into habitat loss, of course. And the final O is over harvesting. So this is from his book, The Creation. Does this difference in worldview separate us in all things? It does not. You and I and every other human being strive for the same imperatives of security, freedom of choice, personal dignity, and a cause to believe in that is larger than ourselves. Let us see then if we can, and you are willing, to meet on the near side of metaphysics in order to deal with the real world we share. I put it this way because you have the power to help solve a great problem about which I care deeply. I hope you have the same concern. I suggest that we set aside our differences in order to save the creation. The defense of living nature is a universal value. It doesn't rise from, nor does it promote any religious or ideologic dogma. Rather, it serves without discrimination the interests of all humanity. And now, Ross Perot also said that the activist is not the one who reminds us that the river is dirty. The activist is the one who cleans up the river. And so one of those who is cleaning up the river, so to speak, metaphorically, in our community is Brian Befford. And we are honored to welcome him this morning to talk about sustainability in Washoe County. He attended Reed College as a major in anthropology, and then his interest drifted a little, I guess, as he traveled the world and came back to journalism, taking a master's degree at the University of Missouri in journalism, and then in sustainability and environmental management from Harvard. He's the former outdoors editor for the RGJ and has spent some 20 years working for various environmental organizations. And this has included the Great Basin Institute, the Friends of Nevada Wilderness, Keep Truckee Meadows Beautiful. He was appointed to spearhead the sustainability program for Washoe County in 2023 after 5.5 years as chapter director for the Sierra Club in our area. He is also been editor of Adventure West magazine and is author of Afoot and Afield, Las Vegas and Southern Nevada. So perhaps someday we'll get a foot and a field in Northern Nevada.
That's a tangent.
Maybe.
Mike White has that.
Although I think he's pretty busy right now. So he's already working with Washoe County Facilities and Fleet Services to identify some areas of immediate opportunity, and including energy efficiency upgrades for facilities and replacing gas-powered fleet vehicles with electric ones. He'll also be exploring ways to take advantage of the funding in the bipartisan infrastructure bill and Inflation Reduction Act. And maybe he can tell us to what extent that's going to be a challenge under the present administration. Actually, there's a wonderful article about this in the May 24th New York Times last year, if you want to read more about Brian's efforts in Washoe County. Through his leadership, Washoe County leads the state in progress toward the goal of reducing greenhouse emissions by 28% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. He believes these programs will bring a triple bottom line benefit, quote unquote, to the county, to people, the environment, and the economy. So with that, I present Brian Befford. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's an honor. And I see faces online. Thank you all for joining us. It's wonderful to be here. I have a presentation. William, okay, so there's a lot going on. And we've been working for more than 1.5 years at the county, drafting the county's climate action plan. I was hired almost 2 years ago next week to build some form to the county's goal to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The draft plan for that is tentatively scheduled. It hasn't been confirmed, but please put March 11th on your calendar, because right now that's where it can land unless things change. There's a lot of internal approvals that have to happen for it to get there, but that's where it's tentatively scheduled. And so I appreciate your indulgence today because I'm gonna practice my presentation to the board. And
Excellent.
and I haven't, so this is the same presentation, well, a longer version because I will be limited to 10 minutes only. And here we have more time. Everyone, I assume everyone can see this? Perfect. And because I'm still practicing, I have my notes here. So I'm juggling screens, and the remote should work. It is supposed to work. And if it doesn't, we'll make it happen. Oh, there it is. So we've got it. Oh, we can do this. Can we do this? So many devices. So I may have to do this manually, but
Okay.
this is supposed to work. Has anyone ever had technology that doesn't work? I don't understand.
Yeah,
It's okay. We're good.
every Sunday, I think.
So everyone, thank you very much. Brian Beffert, Sustainability Manager for Washoe County. And lucky us, we live here in Washoe County. What an amazing place to live. It nestled between the Sierra Nevada and the Great Basin Desert. We have a vibrant economy that attracts families and businesses. We have amazing quality of life, which is one of the reasons why so many people are attracted to the area. And we have abundant cultural and outdoor recreation opportunities. Like I said, it's a wonderful place to live. In 2023, Outside Magazine called Reno the happiest place to live in the United States. I don't know what their criteria were, but I'm enjoying it. So it's a wonderful place to be. Can I? Come on. I apologize, folks, for, yeah. Oh, man, it goes fast. There it is. Now it's okay. Okay, we can do this. But we're threatened. For several years running, Reno has been the fastest warming city in the United States, measured by Climate Central. And just in the last few years, we've seen atmospheric rivers of historic levels. If storms, droughts, heat, fires, floods, all of that. And I imagine everyone here has experienced directly some of the impacts, whether it's the smoke or flooding. And in addition to the impacts that come to all of the members of our community, Washoe County and other agencies and jurisdictions are on the front lines of responding. So when it snows, we've got to fire up our trucks, our plows, to clear the roads. That picture you see on the right is our emergency operations center. So when the Davis fire happened, when floods come, when fires come, this picture was actually taken during sometime around this time last year, when atmospheric rivers were coming and all of our local agencies had to respond. So they got up into one room and they coordinate how best to do that. All of that costs a lot of money, and those are your taxpayer dollars. And we are on the front lines of responding to these events. And whether right there, the flag, the political flags are waving back and forth. It seems to have, wind has switched 180 degrees over the last 6 weeks or so. And I'm hoping we can stay away from the he said, she said, what do you call it? How did it start? Whose fault is it? event of climate change. And the bottom line is, whatever you call it, these impacts are coming and they are here, they're hitting our region. And it would serve us well to respond. We need to prepare. One of the county's strategic missions is to provide critical services and to maintain fiscal sustainability to be able to pay for those. All of this costs us money. And the county being on the front lines of these changes. Oh, well, now it works. It just took a while. It had to warm up. The county has been on the front lines of these changes and has known these changes are coming for years, since 1997. Our Board of County Commissioners and our staff have been engaged in sustainability issues for various reasons. And these are some of the leading. Our mission is there in the top center. My work with the Climate Action Plan and Sustainability Division is guided by the upper left, and I'm happy to share this presentation for anyone who wants. The Climate Action Plan is guided by our strategic priority to support a thriving community, to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions. There are many sustainability best practices incorporated in the county's master plan that was passed or adopted last year. Many of it also included in the Green Recovery Plan, which was written in anticipation of my hiring and allocated a little bit of money from ARPA funds to help us pursue a community forestry, expand community gardens, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And Nevada State has a mandate to achieve zero or net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. That was Senate Bill 254 in 2019, introduced by Chris Brooks. All right, I have this again. And so this climate action plan is really just the latest milestone in our work to achieve these. And we have separate plans. It comes in, well, separate plans for both county operations and a community-wide climate action plan. Those are led or informed by a greenhouse gas inventory that is actually regular for county operations. We have a contract with N0 that does real-time or as close to real-time as possible tracking of our emissions and our energy use. Happy to share, we actually have a new public portal, and I'm happy to share that after. And we have a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory for 2021 and a plan to address that. And all of these plans are fall into 4 general buckets. Net zero alignment. So let's adopt these plans. Let's come to a community consensus about what's happening and what roles each of us can play in addressing this. And within the county, it's all of our departments getting online and getting on board with our shared goal to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Sustainable land use, because we are a part of our environment, and a healthy ecosystem, especially a healthy river, supports a healthy community. And then reducing emissions at the source, and really that's buildings, transportation, and waste management. All of these details are coming, and produce cleaner energy where we can. So starting with county operations, these are some pictures and some stats of our energy use. And this was from 2021, because we need to pick something. So that's our baseline year for conversation. Lots of details on the right. I'm happy to answer any questions, but on the left, it's really a pie chart. Our buildings are half of our energy. We have 400 facilities, 100 that matter, and 25 buildings that contribute 90% of our emissions. And so how do we focus on our jail, our wastewater treatment plant, our county complex, the courts building, and a few others. You'll notice employee commutes is significant. So how do we reduce those emissions, get people out of their cars, fleets, and then waste management. As I mentioned, we have those 4 strategies, alignment. So upper left, adopting the plan, some of the other plans that we're looking at that are mentioned in this climate action plan are a sustainable purchasing plan. So because everything we buy and everything we throw away, we are responsible for. Facility decarbonization plan, which focuses primarily on our buildings. And then how can you know that we're doing the work? We need to be transparent. And so offering dashboards and annual reports on our progress. Sustainable land use, as I mentioned, the master plan and vision washout has a lot of really good best practices. So we'd like to see those supported. We're launching a community forestry program to help with urban heat and pollution. And of course, we need to care for the Truckee River because without the river, none of this matters and none of us matters. We're all going to leave. And so we need to maintain a vibrant, healthy river. Reducing emissions at the source, as I mentioned, its fleets, its facilities, and all of our internal operations, travel, commuting, and waste management. Try not to get into any details. I'm happy to answer any questions because each of these is a rabbit trail. And expanding renewable energy. So trying to get more solar panels on more buildings, on more lands, preferably here in town where closer to where we need the energy. And also explore the potential for wind and geothermal. Those don't come up as often, but what a great, in the right area, geothermal is an amazing resource. And the last I checked, wind happens here. So if we can tap into that, that would be a wonderful thing.
Now, I read recently, Brian, that for wind energy to be practical, the average wind speed in a community needs to be 13 miles per hour. And surprisingly, we're only at about 6% or 6 miles per hour on average. We have these tremendous gusts. And we all recognize that. So I was surprised by that. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I don't know.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
And let's make data informed decisions. So I've heard that general constant wind is the best. And so Texas, the Great Plains apparently have that wind. And I've heard bigger is better. And that's true with solar too, right? Like if you're talking about kilowatts delivered per dollar expended, bigger is the way to go. That's why we're bulldozing tens of thousands of acres of our desert to plant solar farms because the cost per kilowatt hour is much lower. But it's not just about cost, right? It's about those triple bottom line benefits, supporting our environment, supporting people, and producing energy. And so, I don't know what that answer is. We do have a plan, working with UNR, and I have an intern ready to go as soon as I turn in paperwork to install weather stations on 10 different facilities throughout the county and capture a year of data and then do the return on investment calculations and see. And we may decide you're right. It's not appropriate, but I'd like to make a data informed decision. So we know for sure. Because right now, what people tell me, show me the data, and I just don't know. We don't have that micro level of data here in the county. You got me started, so I'm gonna say my grandparents homesteaded some land up on Chalk Bluff above Patagonia, West Mayan, Mesa Avenue. And boy, like it must have been windy 300 days a year there. And there's got to be something that you can tap into in that. It just seems so. Anyway, so that's wind. And so that's community. Now, I'm sorry, let's move into community-wide work. This is some data from our community-wide greenhouse gas inventory. I'd like to give huge props to my partner at work, Emily Stapleton. She's with the county for 2 years, and she is responsible for our greenhouse gas inventory. And if you have detailed follow-up questions, I'm going to defer to her. And she also wrote our community climate action plan. Again, our data sources over on the right, and it's really just asking all of the big users what energy they used in 2021. The pie chart again is on the left. Transportation in blue, more than a third, and then all of that orange is buildings. Right, so how do we reduce the energy use in our buildings? And then wastewater and fugitive emissions are refrigerants and fire extinguishers and solvents and other things like that in our processes that we need to pay attention to. And I'm happy to go into some detail about those. Again, those 4 strategies, we have 77 individual actions for the community-wide, mainly aligning around the community with Reno RTC, Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority, EDON, the airport, like everyone we can think of who is a major energy user in town. We'd like to talk with them about what their plans are to save energy, reduce emissions. Again, sharing all of this with dashboards and communicating best practices and milestones. Sustainable land use, it's the same thing, right? We need to care for this beautiful cradle of the environment, of lands, plants, animals, and a river where we live. Our energy, reducing our emissions, it's the same categories: transportation, buildings, and waste, and then again, producing cleaner energy. And all of this matters. And all of these actions have an opportunity to make tangible, measurable changes in things that matter to us. So how can we lower the heat in summer? And how can we help people adapt to the heat? So I'm lucky. If I had to, I could go up to Tahoe for the day. We could drive out to the coast, take some vacation time, and hang out on the coast and enjoy cooler weather. There are a lot of people in this community who do not have that capacity to run away. And so how can we help them adapt in ways that make them more comfortable without necessarily using more energy? How can we clean the air? How many people had to go to the hospital because of the smoke from the rim fire? How many people have asthma that impacts their life, their school, their work, their earning capacity? How can we improve outcomes for them? And how can we save you money on your energy bills? How can we save taxpayers money paying the energy bills for the county? I think it's $4 million a year that we pay to NV Energy to run our buildings. Can we reduce those costs and spend them? And of course, we have a new economy growing, depending on what political winds are blowing at the moment. But we have some amazing opportunities for green energy, for clean energy, for renewable and circular economies that are a better use of our resources. And so I believe that actions that we proposed in this climate action plan can help us do all of that. This is very much a community informed plan. I'm here, I'm the spokesperson of this project. but I am presenting ideas and conversations and recommendations from many of you and from many county staff and departments and from stakeholders and community members across the community. And this is just a snapshot of the conversations that we've had. And so very much community informed. And so how do we get there? What are we gonna do? We're gonna try to, as I mentioned before, it would be great to make data informed decisions. We are tracking our energy use. We have some return on investment analyses that say, yes, light bulbs really do save you money and energy. In fact, we've been spending the last federal grant we got on switching out our light bulbs in the courts complex, 1 South Sierra Street. And there's several buildings there. We're already saving thousands of dollars a month in our energy bills just because of light bulbs over the last few months. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that graph looks like moving forward. And how can we invest in conservation rather than buying solar panels and new heat pumps? How can we invest in insulating our homes so we don't need as much energy, so you don't need to buy as big of a heat pump? So maybe when the power goes out, your home stays more comfortable, whether it's too hot or too cold outside. You'll have additional hours, maybe days of comfort, because your envelope, your building around you is more efficient. And with all of that, you won't need as many solar panels, as many heat pumps, as many devices that are gonna cost money. And how can we work together to achieve all of these? Would love to pursue federal grants. Every federal grant I've received in the last 2 years is on pause. That's my lesson. We can't wait for the feds and look around you. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Luckily, we live in a wealthy community. And maybe it's not all of the county or Reno, but there is wealth. We've been tapping in and building, we as a society, as a civilization, have been amassing wealth from our natural resources for centuries. And that wealth needs to be made available for these changes. Happy to dive into that sometime if you want to talk more. Definitely making a point that adopting this plan is not going to incur a general fund obligation for the county. We are looking at a reduced economic impact over the next few years, lower revenue, increasing costs. And so my job is to save us money, not spend money. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. And when we do spend money, it will be based on data-informed decisions. We have an amazing spreadsheet showing our fleets. And there are 200 vehicles that we could switch and probably should switch to electric sooner than later, because the long-term operating cost of doing so is incredibly favorable. And as soon as I get a few $1 million to install chargers, we'll be able to do that. And all of this, I'm a department of one, right? So all of this takes all of us to be able to achieve. And that goes back to our first goal, agreeing that this is a priority that's worth pursuing. So I'd like to take it back to where we started. We live in a beautiful community, but that isn't guaranteed into the future. And so it's up to us. What do we choose? What do we want our community to be? What kind of life do we want to live here in the Truckee Meadows? And I deeply believe that we have every potential to use energy well, to use energy efficiently and affordably, to have cleaner air and a vibrant and beautiful city and economy that is resilient in the face of whatever challenges come our way. resiliency is a fun topic that we could spend an additional forum talking about. Economic resiliency, infrastructure resiliency, cultural resiliency. There's so many different ways we could come at that. And I would like to look back, some of you may not see the board over here. I wonder what would happen if, and I see the habitat loss and the invasive species and the pollution and the population, but what would happen if we did it right? Right? What would happen if we did good things for our community? And the county, thank you, Dr. Murphy, you said Washoe County is leading. Maybe we are. That's in our vision statement, right? Our goal is to be the leading regional force for economic and environment and policy decisions. And so hold us accountable to do that. We have a mission to provide a safe, secure, and healthy community. Hold us accountable to that mission. And my experience working with every staff that I've met, I've got 3,100 coworkers. I haven't met them all. The ones that have weighed in on this are dedicated to doing the right thing for our constituents. Support us and hold us accountable to that. This climate plan includes specific, measurable, tangible steps to help the county. Here's my talking point: become the social economic policy leadership force in the region and provide and sustain a safe, secure, and healthy community. And this plan contains many elements. It's not the only thing that's happening, but it contains many elements that'll help us get there. So let's talk about you, right? Where are we going to start? How are we going to get there? Best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. Second best time to plant a tree is right now, right? We can only do what we can with what we have where we are right now. And you all know, I'm sure each of you has a dozen ideas in your head. Oh, I wish we could do this. I need to do that. What if we did this? It's time for us to do those things. No one else is going to do it for you, and the feds aren't going to save you, and the county's not going to save you. And luckily, you're in a community that has amazing capacity to plant some seeds. And this is one of my favorite protest signs. I think it was 2020. I don't know. But we have the opportunity, and each of us is a seed, and everything we do and everything we do together and everything we share with others that brings a solution forward. And that could be a tomato plant, and it could be an LED light bulb, and it could be a conversation with your neighbor. Plants a seed for a better future. And so, what do we want to do? What are those seeds going? Where are they going to take us? How can we plant them in ways that create a better future? And the only last thing I'll say is, holy cow, what a chaotic, crazy time we live in. And maybe it's all falling apart. And when it does, people are going to be looking for solutions. People are going to be looking for food. People are going to be looking for compassion and for warmth and for support as we try to navigate what we need to create to survive into the future. And it might not be the massive bureaucracies that we have in place. It might be something different. And you have the capacity to create that new whatever it is. And so please don't wait, because we all need all of us to play along. So anyway, I think that's it. I'm happy to take questions and start a conversation. Yes, hi.
I've got a million of them.
Yay.
So one of my concerns is the solar companies that come out and lease solar to my neighbors. I bought my own solar, and then them selling their greenhouse gas credits. And people think that they're doing good by putting solar on their roof when really they're just selling it to some major corporation to, net zero. And what is the real net zero? And then does the county work with RTC? Like, I would love to ride a bus to work. I live down in Demonte Ranch. I would have to drive to the mall and hop on a bus or get on a bus at Double Diamond, get off the mall and do it. They don't make it easy to get there. I bought a bike, tried to ride to work. I knew it was just a matter of time before I was hit, so I stopped. But what is the plan? And then how much say does the county have over the city? And what they do?
Yes. Solar. Yes, there are financial schemes, and I use that in the British sense. Although maybe in the American sense as well, like it's a contract and maybe it's good, maybe it's not. Renewable energy credits are great when they bring renewable electrons to the grid. And so ultimately, I would say every solar panel we can add is less gas peaking plant that we have to burn, less coal we have to use.
So it's still a good thing, even if they're selling your credits, your greenhouse credits.
Yes.
Big polluters, okay,
Yes.
okay.
I mean, I will say it's good. Every renewable electron we can bring to the grid is good. All of that contractual stuff. I think it's important to shed some light, and consumer protections are an important part of that. We're working with Nevada Clean Energy Fund on their Solar for All grant, and one of their priorities is approved contractors who will treat you right for the right reasons. Okay, RTC, or Reno, we don't have authority over Reno or RTC, although one of our commissioners is on the RTC board, maybe two of them. I can't keep track, they have so many commitments. But we can suggest and we can urge and we can convene public conversations to do the right thing. We just submitted last week comments to RTC's resource RTP, the Resource Transportation Plan, whatever, Regional Transportation Plan. And we said, net zero 2050, please adopt it. So we can urge and we can show progress, and we can convene public conversations where the public can show up and in your public comments, hold all of us accountable to the changes that you need to make. Riding the bus, boy, wouldn't it be great if we could get people out of their cars, and I'm one of them. I've taken the bus to work. It's an hour. And I can drive in 12 minutes.
Same.
Right, with my hybrid, so I'm telling myself, oh, I'm not burning any, right? I don't know what to do, like, what I've been told is we don't have the density to support mass transit like New York and Spain and Barcelona and some of these other
Hong
places.
Kong,
Hong
and
Kong, all
everybody
of
going.
all of Tokyo, all of them. Tokyo has amazing trains. They also have 17 nuclear power plants to fire them all. So, again, going back to how can we use less? How can we design our cities? And I think that's the best answer. How can we design our cities and our lives in such a way that we don't need to drive as much? And when we do need to drive, how can we commute? How can we ride our bike down to the bus station? Driving to Meadowood Mall and hopping on a bus, maybe the best thing we have at the moment. And maybe increasing ridership to the degree that we're able to is a good thing. I dream of trolleys. If you've been to San Francisco, the Embarcadero, all those old trolleys, I love that. Up and down Virginia Street,
Yeah,
from
we have
UNR
that.
down to Summit, down to Carson. Why don't we have it? I don't know. And if we can develop it all, it's all connected. So if Reno can develop that zone around the convention center for more restaurants, more businesses, more homes, more attractions, that will produce the density along that line that might incentivize some sort of trolley system in the future. That will bring more shows to town, more conventions to town. Because there's some place to go after they walk out of the building. I was on the committee that tried to bring outdoor retailer back after they left. And the CEO of Black Diamond said, Brian, we love Reno, but as soon as our convention's over at the end of the day, 10,000 people walk out of the convention center. What do? There's no restaurants, other than the Atlantis, there's nowhere for us to go. There's nothing for us to do. 10,000 people have to hop in cabs and go somewhere else. That's just a piece of the problem. We're solving it with Red, that new development on Plum in Virginia, and there's a grocery store right across the street, and there's barber shops and a movie theater.
And a police substation.
And a police substation.
Yeah.
And so it's pieces like that. How can we create neighborhood hubs?
Right. Yeah,
Did I answer?
yes, yeah, it's just so frustrating that they're not. I saw in that daybreak with the Sound Palace, I think, the 3,800 homes that are going on at Veterans and South Meadows, and they're supposed to be retail shops and that kind of stuff, but not grocery stores. And you have to jump in your car and go to the grocery store now, which is.
100%.
Yeah. And then Peppermill, is it still 100% run on thermal?
Geothermal, I think
Yeah.
they are. They have, and it's an amazing tour. If you want to set it up, if you can get it. But they heat all of their rooms, all of their water with geothermal. And that's the district. It's like Moana down to the Peppermill. There's some hot under the ground there, and a lot of homes tap into that. It's not available everywhere. But shallow geothermal is, so if you dig down, what is it, 8-10 feet? The ground below us is the average temperature for this region, which is somewhere in the mid-50s. On a hot day, with some energy transfer, using a ground source heat pump, 50-degree air is pretty nice inside your home. And on a cold day, 50-degree air is a whole lot better than 27-degree air. If you need to heat, you're a lot closer to that comfort. So geothermal is a wonderful thing. It just costs a lot. And in the perfect world up front, before you build your building, because you got to get under the floor is ideal.
And, oh, go right ahead.
Hi, I have a question about the efficiency models for homes, right? So improving the efficiency of a home so that you're reducing your energy consumption. That's great for homeowners who have incentives to do that perhaps, but not for renters. And I'm sure there's a lot of renters in Washoe County. And so I'm just wondering, and who probably have fewer economic resources to heat their homes in general and are probably living in houses that are not well insulated because they're older or just. So I'm just wondering, is that where the federal money would come in for grants to provide incentives for landlords? And is that going to be compromised as a result of the federal policy changes?
Yes, that's a tough nut to crack, and the best way we've been able to figure out how to get to those efficiencies is economic financial incentives, right? And the landlords don't have the incentive because they're not paying the energy bills necessarily. And they're not reaping the benefits of that. And the tenants don't have the incentive because they don't own the property. And so how do we crack that nut? Again, talking about the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, that is part of the federal Solar for All grant. There's 3 programs in that. low income weatherization to reduce before you produce. And multifamily solar and municipal solar with credit to low income customers. So we're participating in the municipal solar part of it. We plan to participate. I need to get this plan passed March 11th. And as soon as that happens, I can start implementing, and that's one of the things. We've identified several facilities where we can install solar, work with Clean Energy Fund, and then by contract, at least 50% of that solar, that credit needs to go to low-income customers. So it's lagging, but there are some ways to do that, and we just need more of them.
And isn't one of the things for that you can, if you're low income, that you can purchase solar credits of arrays that they're building
Yes.
out there? But I think it's always getting the word, that people don't know about it.
It's getting the word out, and NV Energy also has limited capacity to get the word out, but there is a subscription program with NV Energy. And hate them or love them, they're on track, or they're making progress toward the goal.
Okay.
I don't track them specifically all the time, but they're making improvements, and our grid is greening and cleaning. So it's steps in the right direction, and yes, we need more. There's also a program called Community-Based Solar Resources, and maybe recently you voted. You got your energy bill, and there was a thing you could vote on to install solar at the Washoe County 9th Street Administrative Complex. And we were approved, and we're moving forward to build. NV Energy is going to build solar covered parking at our administrative complex, and all of that power will go to credit.
You're getting applause online there.
Will go to credit low income customers. So the county's not going to get any credit at all. And that's okay. That's a service.
And so who's paying for the solar then? Is NV Energy putting that?
NV Energy's paying, which means I think ratepayers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you taken a position on the expansion of data centers in Washoe County? And if so, have you approached the Reno City Council, and what arguments do you make?
So I have not, because I don't tell Reno what to do, and that would be a bad step to take. The county apparently, talking with my boss, I report to Assistant County Manager Dave Solero. And when we had this conversation, he said, we had a problem some years ago with data centers, and our development codes actually address that. I don't know if they address it appropriately or enough, but apparently better than Reno has done. But hats off to the Planning Commission, right? The Reno Planning Commission. They do want to build better requirements or better understanding for data centers. And maybe it's not data centers, maybe it's all energy intensive businesses, right? So don't let data centers distract you, because there might be a foundry or a manufacturing plant that uses more energy. And how can we pay attention to those when they come across the plate as well? And in response to what's happening at Reno, we are trying to do some research to gather best practices for development and zoning. And if we can find ways to improve the way we do things at Washoe, we'll certainly try. That would be getting things through Planning Commission, Washoe Planning Commission. It's very confusing. And our commissioners. And there have to be strong arguments. And if it costs more money, it will be resisted, right, by the developers. And you folks need to show up to counter that, because we can't
another question.
Yes, please.
Um,
I'm here all day.
You said you are Department 1, so, 2 questions. What happens if the county adopts the plan? Does that make you like more of a department? I mean, will you get additional staff? And or how do you communicate with other branches in the county to have the vision implemented?
Sure.
I don't know if those questions make sense.
Yes, they do. If the plan, when the plan gets adopted, will my staff grow? And how do I report or communicate? So back to that number 1 goal, align around the county, that's why that was built in. Passing this plan gives me the mandate to have conversations with every department and every employee. And it gives those departments the mandate to have that conversation. And it tells all of the departments. So really, and if you look at the list of actions, and I shared that link, and those links are available online, 126 different actions. It's really just a checklist, right? Let's talk about sustainable procurement. Let's talk about facility decarbonization. Let's look at wind, let's look at geothermal. Let's look at net zero building standards. Let's look at our fleets and how we can transition to lower emissions. And so it's really just a checklist that is a mandate to all of us to have those conversations and do the work. Because we have a lower financial projected revenue, I'm not asking for more. I would love more resources. Having said that, like our departments, we have a green team at the county, so it's a voluntary committee. Staff can join and come, we talk about stuff, and we have projects. And so there's that. And then this data, this plan is informed from conversations, and it's mainly our facilities and operations, because they're the ones who manage the buildings and the fleets and all of our heat pumps and all of that stuff. They respond to every Teams is a verb now. It's a platform for chatting back and forth.
Microsoft.
Yes, we're Microsoft County. And so we Teams back and forth. And when I ask questions, they get back to me, and it's leadership that responds. And so I'm deeply grateful. And I've never heard a single word of resistance. I have heard concerns like, okay, so we've got, the county has a 5-year capital improvement plan. And so the heat pump that we're gonna replace at the jail in 2029 is already on the spreadsheet. Getting assessed, and we have risk assessments for all of our buildings, for all of our devices. And so there's that longer conversation. And the best progress that I could make is insert sustainability goals and metrics into that process. And that's in our plan. Build it in and build it into our project management software so that it doesn't depend on me as a single employee to have all of these conversations. Our project managers have already incorporated these metrics into their plan. The CIP process has already incorporated metrics into their conversations and into their analysis. How do we evaluate what needs to happen next? And some of those decisions are informed by sustainability metrics and best practices. So fingers crossed, was that all? So Department of One, probably not going to change, but I'm trying to bake it in to everything that we do. Plus interns every semester. And there is one, Lorna McPalmer, if you are listening, there is one staff in our HR department that got the approval to spend part of her time working on sustainability. And so she's on my team, and she's helping roll out. She identified and created, we're rolling out an energy efficiency training for all employees. one of my KPIs this year. She found it, she created it, and so I want more of those. I wanna, more Lorna's. And Michael's and Sabrina's and Stephanie's and McKenna's and Candy's and other amazing people who do great work and are fully behind. And so the goal is to bake it into everything we do. If I add staff, you're paying for it. And that's just added cost. How can we use sustainability to lower our costs, not spend more? And yes, if we can get grants, plan to do it, and I'd love to come back and talk financing sometime soon. I have a scheme. Next, yes, please.
So I participate in Carbon Neutral Indiana, which is the voluntary citizens program for, you annually measure your carbon footprint, you reduce where you can, you purchase offsets, hope from high quality offsets provider. Have you looked at such, it's a nonprofit. Have you looked at those grassroots programs? If so, does it factor into the Washoe County plan?
Yes, 100%. And I'm making assumptions that your house uses energy and produces emissions. And thank you for your work to trying to reduce that. And we all need to do that. And there are many tools available, and it's great to hear about that one. Rewiring America has good stuff. RMI, formerly known Rocky Mountain Institute, has good tools. Nevada Conservation League has a good page to good tools to help people. There are wonderful resources available. And don't wait for us. Go out and do them. And maybe you have a committee here, a team here who can do that. What we can do is try to help amplify those and support those and convene conversations around those. But the county doesn't have authority to come to your house and do an energy audit and tell you what to do, nor do you want us to have that authority. And so we look forward to your leadership. And if there's any way that we can support that, that's fantastic. And communication and sharing and amplifying the good tools and projects that are already out there is part of our plan. Communications and education is a huge, big piece of it.
Sure, yeah, this one's a little different because.
So, Brian,
Do we have to stop now?
well,
I don't know.
in a few minutes.
Okay, because I've got all that.
You have questions too.
Yes, let's go online, please.
There are,
Yes,
Dan, do you want to ask your questions or do you want me to read them for you?
Go ahead.
Are you able to unmute?
Oh, are we muted?
So there's
No.
several questions, one from Nancy Ann on how we can push towards solar panels on roofs, like warehouse roofs. And the second one has to do with the heat islands that are in Reno and if Washoe County help reduce the heat island effect? And then I have two questions from Robin Palmer as well.
hi, Robin Palmer. Heat islands, I'm gonna go to heat islands because I prepared for that question.
Good.
Do I get to, oh, I think I'm there, right? Maybe? Can you see?
We can see this. Yes.
And it takes a while, somehow.
Oh, there we go.
We're changing, we're doing. Boy, this is just a crazy stop. And it takes a while for it to, and I don't know where. Come on, all the way, keep going. No, really, I have something to show you, I promise. Okay, so while I'm here, because it's insisting, this is a list of our top energy using facilities and buildings in the county. And 25 of our buildings contribute 90% of our emissions. And so how do we get there? PAR is our jail, Stum Wharf number 2 is our South Truckee Meadows wastewater treatment facility. The courts buildings, our administrative complex, Jan Evans Juvenile Detention Center, And if we just fix those buildings, that's 60% of our emissions. So working on it, we're trying, and I could go into those, come on.
Some of those buildings are newer than others. or older.
Yes, yes, for sure. I'm sorry, it's not, I have a, oh, come on, there. There it is. Come on. It's so, in a, there it is. Okay, you asked Reno Heat Island. Oh my gosh. We're developing, so last summer, and some of you may have participated, there was the Heat Island Citizen Science Study, co-citizen science. Over on the right are the results that you collected driving throughout our communities. Those are the elements of heat. On the left is our urban tree canopy. I'm sorry, our regional tree canopy. So some of this isn't urban, but all those green are trees, and the yellow shapes on the left are low-income disadvantaged communities as identified by the EPA. Using the EJ screen tool, which was decommissioned by Trump last week. We knew it was coming because it happened last time. We downloaded all these layers. We're not allowed to talk about diversity, but there are people living in these areas that carry a heavier burden of heat, of air pollution, of lack of access to open space, lack of trees. If you compare the tree canopy in the Southwest to some of it in Sparks and Sun Valley. So anyway, I have an intern, because interns, GIS intern, she put this together on Friday afternoon so I could submit to our state community forestry grant. And next week I'm gonna say, can you put the heat on top of all of that so we can see? There will be a heat summit coming late May, early June. UNR, DRI, Reno, us, others are working on that. I'm just gonna show up and do what they tell me to do. I'm not organizing it. But yes, we are addressing. And so ultimately, let's overlap all of these maps. Let's figure out where we have trees, where we have heat, where we don't have trees, and where we have people who need trees. And that's where we start to plant trees. And address that urban heat. So we have data, and we're getting to the point where we can actually analyze it and figure out where we need to go.
Brian, related to this, to what extent is the city of Reno in alignment with the county's
That was my
sustainability
question.
plan?
Do you work with Suzanne?
Suzanne and I talk often. We are the few, the proud, the sustainability managers here. Reno's a different political climate with different mandates, different departments, different opinions. I do not tell them what to do, but they are also ahead of us. They passed their sustainability and climate action plan. I was on that advisory board, 2019, I think, through 2025. They're currently updating it to address the next 5 years. As we were writing our climate action plan, we shared with them, we tried to make sure we're in alignment with them. There are definitely some projects that they're pursuing, other projects that we still need to start. I'm getting this, we're getting this from the back of the room.
Yeah.
So we try to be in alignment as much as possible. And to the degree that citizens can show up at the microphone during public comment and support that alignment, that's always a good thing.
And does the county do Zoom too, if you're not able to get there? Can we-
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Well, let me invite you to come up and speak to Brian personally, so that we can put out the light of this candle here, but not the light in your souls, which Brian has contributed to immensely today. Thank you.
It's an honor very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.